fully focused on XR, and that was Shapes XR.
How did you get into reality labs at Meta?
I'm trying to be as honest as possible here.
Have you not felt these sort of questions before? Or?
I thought about it, so I decided to take a part-time job on top of my full day.
And so what would you say to someone who's considering getting into that space?
That's actually one of those questions that I get almost every day.
I think what you said at the end is a really good piece of advice.
Fed all of those to ChatGPT and created a design mentorship group for myself. Sometimes they have conversations, sometimes they have debates.
What is the hardest part about designing for VR and MR?
That's a really good question. I would say the hardest part is to...
What gets you excited the most about VR as we go into the future now, and XR and so on? What is the most exciting thing? Yeah, I think we're good to go.
Yeah.
You look very different with the glasses on. I'd say that.
Good different or bad different? Sure?
Yeah.
All right.
Good. Okay, so Mo, it's great to have you here today to join us to talk about everything product design and more. And
thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So I wanted to kick us off with maybe not with the typical question you might get, which is, if I met you when you were a kid and I asked you what you'd like to be when you're older and what you're going to do, what would you have said? And how different is that to what you are today?
That's a very interesting question. I doubt that I would have answered that I'm going to be a designer or want to be a designer. I think at the beginning, I wanted to be some sort of a builder, like an engineer or something like that. I was so close with taking things apart and rebuilding them or creating things. I was so into electronics and stuff like that. So I wasn't that close to like design and art. And I think I'm very far away from it, from at least a deliverable point of view. But from the problem solving and being still in close contact and in love with technology, I think I'm close. So I would say maybe I'm there 50 to 60%.
Yeah. Okay. Do you see you being involved in this field going forwards more and more? Or would you feel like you're going to maybe go away from the specific field within product design that you're currently in?
To be honest, that's been on my mind for a while. It's been 8 years that I've tried to have my focus solely on XR. It's been hard. It's been challenging. The market has been going through rough times, rough patches. And at the end of the day, I like to work on meaningful projects. And I'm not at that stage of like running my own agency or my own studio. So I'm dependent on what is available, what our companies are working on, what are the actual products and ideas. And depending on those, I might be forced to change what's happening. But what I love to do is to stay relevant, still focus on XR, because I truly believe in the power and the future of XR. Maybe not in the form factor that we are considering these days, maybe not in the form factor of VR headsets or even AR headsets. One thing that I'm really optimistic about is the learnings that come from XR. For instance, the wristband that we announced at Connect as a constellation to Orion, that can be used with every everyday device. You can be wearing it and interacting with your TV. You don't need to wear a headset or glasses or something like that. And those learnings can still empower people and be helpful into day-to-day lives massively. So because of all of those things, I love to stay within the XR industry, and I do my best to stay relevant, to stay on top of the new technologies, new trends, new events, and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, that makes complete sense. And I thought about that as well myself, that, you do kind of, the more senior you get, you almost need to specialize. And so what would you say to someone who's considering getting into that space, but is not really sure about it? And maybe that kind of answers the question in itself. If they're not sure about, I don't know if I want to invest in all this time, I'll have to update my portfolio. I have to maybe lots of case studies to show that I can work in that space when I could just kind of double down on what I'm already doing.
That's actually one of those questions that I get almost every day, from people who've been in the design industry for a while and they want to now switch into different contexts, different platforms, or newcomers who want to jump into product design and now they have access to new platforms, new means of design. I think it's really personal. You need to find what motivates you, what keeps you on your toes, and what keeps your work for you enjoyable. If you enjoy from learnings and if you enjoy from uncertainties and working on 0 to 1 products, XR is still that sort of field, and it's going to be. At least my prediction is for maybe 5 to 10 years from now, there still be so many uncertainties, non-standards patterns that we need to figure out. It's not like mobile design and interactions that's it's been quite mature these days, and you can rely on what has been learned, what has been tested previously, and progress on those. What I would suggest to anyone who wants to check is to get the cheapest VR headset, do as little as possible financial investment, and try absolute every single free app and experience in VR, in AR, in MR, and see how they feel, how they find themselves working on those. When they're trying this, do they have ideas to improve those? Do they catch the issues, the user patterns, the mental models? And after a while, after maybe 10, 20 days, you get if you'd like to stay and come back to your VR headset, to your AR glasses more and more, or if you try to get to avoid it. I think that could be a sign if you could survive this area, because it's tough.
Yeah, I think what you said at the end is a really, really good piece of advice. That if you keep wanting to come back to it and keep wanting to use it, then that is telling, isn't it? That is telling that you are genuinely interested in it, and maybe you're not using it when they've just done the announcement.
Exactly.
Like a lot of people
Yeah.
start using it and picking it up again. Obviously, Christmas, and there's often a huge spike in the amount of people using the products, like VR headsets and so on. And so I think that's really good if you kind of just say, "Oh, I'm always using this. I'm always curious about using it," because if you are going to work in that space, you're going to be wearing it.
Exactly. Exactly.
And of course there are tools to design in it and so forth. So I think that's a really good way just to, if you're unsure, just do it. Get the cheapest usage or get something affordable, wear it, use it, play with it, and to see how long you actually keep to using it and exploring. Yeah, I think that's really good.
Yeah, but unfortunately, maybe there are many people who have bought a VR headset and they're not using it. So I bet that we can find a friend that borrowed their headsets for a couple of days, maybe to start with. The reason why I'm asking that, because no, I'm saying that because I believe sometimes if we do big financial investments, we kind of force ourselves of continuing with that. But if we reduce the financial investment, it's more accurate, the data, the insights, the feeling that we get. If I pay for a super beautiful microphone, I would be forcing myself to using it. But if I get that for free, my coming back to it might be more accurate in terms of if it's real feeling from me, if there is any real attraction between this object, between this feel and my intuitions.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, we're going into almost like the psychology of habit and so on now. But yeah, that's a really good point. I've actually always thought of it differently, like that. Oh, if you put some money in, you're going to use it. But you're right, you're using it because you have to, because you don't want to lose out on that yen that you spent.
I think that's a good strategy when you are sure that you want to jump in. That was when I bought and I started buying VR headsets, because I was sure, for sure, I want to be here. If I may, I will tell you a story of like how I got into VR. I've been a designer for 18 years now. I started from graphic design, print, and normal design, then shifted towards digital product design. Why? Because it was happening. The web and the mobile applications replacing almost everything. So I naturally being attracted and moved towards that. But throughout the journey, I always wanted to be a multidisciplinary designer. I always wanted to do a bit of a fun with sound design, a bit of a motion design, a bit of a VFX and graphic design. Even I'm very interested in industrial design, in architecture and stuff like that. And the first time that I've heard about Google Cardboard, which was the first kind of VR headset, or at least my first interaction with a VR headset, I thought, that's it. That's the area that I can bring all the learnings, all my um, fun projects into one medium. Because for an engaging, um, immersive experience, you need good audio, you need good visuals, you need UX, you need all of those disciplines that you have to design. You need to be aware of ergonomic and embodiment and stuff like that. So that was the opportunity. That was the moment that I realized, oh, that's the entry point, that I can bring all of these years of learnings and having fun into kind of a one project.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that takes me back to Google Cardboard. I remember trying the Oculus. It was in a installation, and I think it was on the embankment. They had an art installation, and it was there, and they had lots, about 10 of them or so. But Google Cardboard came out after that, and I think obviously Google Glass came out before even any
Yeah.
of them. So how did you get into reality labs at Meta? Because I think that's one thing that people will be interested in. And obviously you spoke about, you know, just playing with the technology and being involved with it and so on. But how do you, I'm a product designer, maybe I'm a senior designer, maybe even a lead at a good company. And I probably think, oh, or even a staff. And I probably think, I'm a staff at this company X, not X as in Twitter, but a company. And I should be able to, I should be able to go to Meta and go and apply for maybe even a senior role. Even if I'm a staff, I should be able to go for maybe a senior role. And because I'm a staff, I should be able to get into that field. What am I going to be able to do that if I maybe came from or worked on a CRM? Maybe I'm working at a company that does CRM. What would you say to that, bro?
Um, I'm trying to be as honest as possible here. I don't necessarily think that landing a job at Meta, especially Meta Reality Labs, is 100% on your resume, on your CV, on your portfolio. It's a combination of factors. Um, the team that you are going to have an interview, the job, they might need someone who works on the web aspect of XR experiences to support developers, toolings, and stuff like that. And if you're coming from someone who's working on CRM, you'll be a perfect fit as far as you know the craft of product design and you are connected with the industry trends and you're not like completely detached from VR and MR and stuff like that. Sorry. You'll be a good fit. But on the other hand, if you're going to join a team who's working on basics of interaction, new interaction patterns for new mediums, new devices, maybe you need better practices. Maybe you need to convince the hiring manager through your resume, through your portfolio, that you've been working within that. So it's really different. I believe my kind of scenario, my story of joining Meta has been a combination of luck, networking, and banging on this door. Because again, I've been doing XR for the last 8 years. So, and I do remember when I joined Meta, the first day I was going through the staircase, and I knew people, and I had, "Hi, how are you?" Before that was the first day, and that was the power of networking. So, and knowing people and joining attending these events that are relevant to keep myself relevant and also build networking. So I like to say that to people who may have applied and didn't get the job. Don't be doubtful of yourself. Don't be doubtful of your skills. It's many, many factors. It's not just your CV. It's not just your portfolio. It's not just having pieces of VR design or AR design that land the job or doesn't. It's a combination of things.
That makes sense. Do you think that, well, I think first of all, you never just landed at Meta, right? Reality Labs. You worked in VR before. Maybe should we start there and go
Yeah.
and like how did you get into that first VR job?
So if I go back, I have started because before this 8 years, I wasn't sure if that's the field that I want to invest fully. So I started taking small AR projects. I was one of the early adapters and beta users of Spark AR and then Lens Studio. That allowed me to have my day job, to have my full-time job focus on still graphic design, branding, the digital product design, and do
What was you doing? Where were you there?
the time that I was started doing that, I was still in Iran. I had my own designer studio, so I was doing almost everything that a client would have bring to me. And then I would have used the relationship with good clients to offer, oh, what do you think about like a lens effect? What do you think about an AR experience? Offering those and creating those job opportunities for myself. Obviously, they were in like the need of the market. So almost none of those were paying jobs. They're like just voluntary or a favor. Then um, I looked for opportunities, for freelance opportunities, so for people who want to try something, to make a prototype, to create a presentation, which requires AR and VR stuff. And as you can see, it has started very slow in terms of the time investment and the chunk of projects, and is slowly getting into bigger projects. The first kind of I would say, the biggest jump for me was when we moved here into London. I had my day job, and I wanted to break out of the product design and break into the XR. So I decided to take a part-time job on top of my full day. So it was hard. It was days of 15 to 18 hours work. As you can imagine, it's not easy. But back then, I had two jobs. One day, not related to XR, still pushing to bring the learnings to that. Another job, part-time job, is the fully focused on XR, and that was Shapes XR. So I had the pleasure of working and shaping the product market fit of Shapes XR. Back then, when I joined, Shapes XR didn't exist. It was Tivori, which was a PCVR application tailored towards animators and directors and stuff like that. But we wanted
The Shape XR.
Shapes XR is a free application on VR that allows designers to jump in, ideate, and prototype spatial experiences. Those spatial experiences can be delivered in VR, in AR, on AR devices, on VR devices, or web. So any sort of spatial experiences that can be designed, communicated, and also prototyped in Shape 6. So I worked on that, and that was a huge opportunity for me that opened so many doors for me. But even that job wasn't out there. I'd like to think that I've created that job for myself, because I reached to the team and I offered that I'd like to work on this project. I have ideas. I have proposal for that. And we started with a 1 month of trial, which led to a year of being the design lead at Shapes XR, which led to an actual piece of portfolio, and then other companies after that. So you see, I started with the small blocks of trying and making sure that this is the right pace, this is the right area, then taking on small real projects, doing paid Instagram effects and AR experiences and VR projects, and then a part-time job, and then full-time job.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. So what it sounds like is you kind of were there, like you said, you created this opportunity for yourself to a certain extent. And you were there so early where maybe the competition wasn't as high. So they were like, this person is a very good designer. It's so new. It's no point us advertising for someone who's a VR designer or MR design because it doesn't exist. We just need a really good designer. But today, what would I do? So I want to get into it now. If there be a job, I'll go for it. And they will say effectively, and yeah, what's your experience? So is it just a case like what you said, just keep using the tools, play around with it, maybe make some case studies, and to keep knocking on that door.
Yeah, I
Effectively.
would say that's the same. Isn't it the same for product design? Isn't it the same for any discipline of design? You pick a discipline, you practice it enough to be good at craft. Then when you master the craft, you start leading to more strategy and thinking and planning, and you become a senior through that. And throughout the journey, you have to be knocking at the doors and waiting for the opportunities and keeping yourself out, standing out for the opportunities. It's not just like, again, back to networking and like kind of promoting yourself and being an advocate of yourself, your skills. If you do good stuff and not sharing it, if you do amazing stuff and just holding it to yourself, how others are going to learn about you?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's the other thing. You see, like, take LinkedIn, for example, there's a number of people, like you'd say the top 10 people on LinkedIn who are the DR experts, and so on. And there is about, you could point them out, and they are very laser focused. They only post about those things. I'm not a fan of the word personal branding, but do you think you have to do a bit of that to be fair? And then when you do apply, you are considered, yeah, you are an expert. You're always talking about it. You're always
Yeah.
posting about it. So,
I do get your point in terms of personal branding becoming a bit of a hyped, bloated term. I would say that's one strategy of standing out in a competitive market. Another would be just solely focus on your networking, and you get there. Another one would be solely focus on your portfolio, and you get there. Also, these days, thanks to technologies and advancement in AI, um, unicorns, which are designers and developers, or designers who can code, could become a thing. So these days, you don't necessarily need an opportunity. You can start building your own applications. And there are many good and successful VR, MR, AR applications out there, which has been designed and developed by one person. And that person many of those have been a designer or working as a designer, and now they have their own experiences. So again, I don't like to be prescriptive of this is the path and you have to do this and this to get there. I think there are multiple ways. It's just a matter of being a designer. What's the core of being a designer? Being a problem solver, isn't it? And this is a problem of how to get into this industry, how to stand out within a very competitive market. That's a problem to solve for us as a designer. So why not apply the same double diamond? Why not apply the same design thinking framework to this problem and solve it for ourselves?
that makes sense. I'm going to jump straight into now, or straight into, almost half an hour in. Um, Jump into, what's a typical day look like? What does it look like? And I know obviously it changes here and there, but what are you literally doing on a day-to-day basis? How much of it is in Google Docs? How much is it actually in a design tool? How much is it actually wearing a headset and exploring it and so on?
These days, my role at Reality Labs is more focused on wearables. The official NBA-friendly line that I can share is I'm working, or the team that I'm part of is working on the future of wearables and supporting the developer aspect of those, which means we will be supporting, or our effort will be supporting other people to build better experiences for wearables, um, including smart glasses, AR glasses in the future, stuff like that. So the day-to-day might be very similar to conventional product design. So I'm still using Figma most of the time, especially for the deliverables, because I need pixel perfection. But I'll be also using other tools such as Spline, such as Blender, such as Unity, mostly to communicate my ideas and my thoughts, not to deliver those. Many things still live in Google Docs because we need to communicate, and that's big part of any design discipline. If you don't communicate, you're failing your job. So in at least in our setup, we use Google Docs a lot, and almost, I would say, every aspect, almost maybe 90% of deliverables live in Google Docs in terms of approval, design approvals, communication, documentation, the product brief page, and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, but that's it. I don't know if I answered that.
Yeah, yeah, okay, so let's take a week. I know percentage is a bit crazy to ask, but what percentage are you actually using those design tools? I was also interested, you said, so let's stick with that question. What percentage are you actually using design tools to put together things, and what tool do you usually use for your deliverables? Or is that just a mixed bag as well?
I would say the percentage of using design tools versus non-design tools, it's about 70 to 30, at least these days. Some weeks it might change. Some weeks you're focused on, some weeks you focus solely on strategy. So you'll be using Google Docs more than Figma or design tools. But when it comes to the design tool is a mixed bag of 2D, 3D, spatial, on web, on a headset, authoring tools. The reason why I think this is my approach, because I don't like to be attached and dependent to one tool. I usually go a backward strategy. So I start imagining what am I going to deliver, and how could I deliver that faster and more efficient, and then which tool would help me. Because for instance, yes, I use Blender and I know Blender a bit, but I'm not a 3D designer. On the other hand, I know enough of a spline, Gravity, Sketch, ShapesXR, Unity, a bit of Unreal. So I use these tools in a way that helps me to deliver what I have in mind. Sometimes it's way easier to jump in Blender and create something, or download the 3D assets from Sketchfab and tweak it and do something with it. Sometimes it would take more time to do that, and I'll jump into Gravity, Sketch, or ShapesXR and just wave my hands in VR and create something to deliver. So it depends, what am I delivering, what's the thoughts, what's the interactions, and what's the level of fidelity that I have to communicate with, basically to choose what tool am I going to use. So I'm not really attached to this tool for this purpose, this tool for this phase, this tool for this phase.
Okay. And in terms of deliverable, do you work closely with a prototyper, and what is a prototyper? Do you work with one?
I don't work closely with a prototyper these days, but I had the pleasure of working with design prototypers before. Usually prototypers, at least the definition of Meta is they are half designers, half engineers, and they can build an actual working prototype of the product. So it's not just like a Figma prototype that you can fake things here and there. There are actual working prototypes, but the code is not shippable. So for instance, at that stage, they don't really care about being bug-free, being 100% reliable, using the proper APIs, using the proper data forwarding or stuff like that. The main job is to get it done as soon as possible in a scrappy way. So I work with them, but at this for the project I'm working now currently, there's no design prototyper role.
So what happens then? So when you get to that point, you've done all these kind of hacky type things to kind of get the message across of what you're doing, so you can move fast, which is fantastic. And so what happens then? You just like, it feels like there's a missing step if you're not working with a prototype, but they go straight to engineer.
Uh, it depend on the project. If the project is very focused on creating new patterns and interactions, there's usually a need for the design prototyper. Or an engineer would comes and build this hacky prototype first to basically to provide the proof of life. On other projects, I know a bit of a coding that I can bridge the gap. So it's basically, you're absolutely right. There is a missing a step here. Sometimes this gap is short enough that I can fill it, or I ask other engineers to help filling it. Sometimes the gap is large enough that makes sense to have another role, another person to come and help with, which is design prototypers.
Do you feel, again, more of a different tax here of questioning? I was going to say, do you feel you're more of a creative person, a technical person? Yeah, or a mix of both?
That's a good question. I think I'd like to be a mix of both. And the reason why is I think our job as designers requires us to change our perspective, change our approach throughout the design process. Sometimes at the beginning, you need to be more creative than technical and pragmatic. Sometimes throughout the process, you need to basically leash your creativity power and control it to be more pragmatic, to deliver something which is more technically feasible. And to do that, you need to be aware of technical limitations. And that's one of the missing points within the design community that I'm seeing. I'm seeing designers being super focused on the craft and missing out on communication skills, missing out on technology awareness. I don't necessarily think designers should learn how to code, but I believe designers should learn engineers' language in order to communicate with them. If that requires just being able to serve the code and understand it a bit, that's great. You also need to understand the language of business to communicate with your product managers, with other stakeholders. So I think,
Can I challenge that?
yeah,
The coding thing, and this is yeah. Obviously, so I don't want to dwell on this too much. The whole design, do you need to know code and stuff? Because there's probably been in a million other podcasts. But like, do you really like need? Maybe are you saying for your space you do, but really otherwise, are you saying specifically for your space, or are you saying actually you don't necessarily need to know as a designer? Because I think a lot of designers would say, no, actually, no, why do I need to know code?
I agree with you. Maybe I said it in a confusing way. I don't believe designers have to learn to code. But I think, so you're a designer, you focus on being a designer, that's absolutely fine. You don't need to learn how to code in any languages. I agree 100% with that. But I think you need to learn the language of a person that you're communicating with. I believe,
Literally the coding language.
no, I'm not
We're saying just how they think about things.
exactly.
Right.
And learning their perspective. It's very similar of like when you're going to meet a kid, you most likely lower your height, you go on your knees, you most likely change the pitch of your voice. Why you do that? Because you want to build a better communication with that person, because that will reflect how they see the world from their height, how they talk, what's the ears are comfortable with in terms of pitch, and that makes your communication better. And we do that very naturally, right? I think that we should, as designers, we should take the same approach communicating and working with other stakeholders. If I keep using design jargons when I'm communicating with engineers, I'm losing them.
Yeah.
If I keep using design jargons communicating with PMs, I'm using the communication, I'm using the relationship, I'm using the trust, and I'm losing everything. So that's why I think knowing about the code, not necessarily learning and being efficient, just knowing about technical limitations, learning about it, being aware of it, would massively help you, and also help you to stand out from the competitive market.
What is the hardest part about designing for VR and MR?
That's a really good question. I would say the hardest part is to do proper, accurate, insightful user research. Observation in conventional product design, like mobile and web, is way, way easier. You can have multiple cameras here and observe how I interact with the mobile application. You can use heat maps and track my mouse cursor and observe how I interact with the website. But when it comes to VR, with the current technology, we don't have eye tracking on every devices, and there are debates if tracking eye and using that information is ethical or not. So it's the art of observation is very hard and makes it challenging to have insightful data from the actual users. That's one aspect. Yes, toolings are not there. We don't have a super mature design product for VR and AR experiences as we do have for conventional product design. We are definitely missing a Figma equivalent in that area. But on the other,
Be that.
say it again.
Wouldn't Bezier be the equivalent?
I think Bez is trying to be there. I think Spline is trying to be one of those. I think ShapesXR is trying to be, but and there are other names, but there's still a huge gap. They're trying to be, and I'm not blaming them. That each of those are trying to do their best. They're trying to find different strategies, and they're amazing tools for certain things. And that's why I jump between those tools. I cannot deliver or fulfill my thoughts, my visions, my ideas using one and only one tool. So that's why I jump between all of those. And I think one of the other hardest part of designing for VR or spatial experiences is how would you communicate that with your teammates? Not everyone has access to a VR headset, and not everyone is willing to put on those and communicate and come and see your design. So most of the time you end up doing something in VR, recording it, taking a photo, bringing it back to a Slack or ways of communication that you have to Teams or Workplace or whatever. And based on my experience, that would take so much of it away that leads you to repeating the concept and communication and having a kind of a failed communication or non-effective communication. I worked in environments that we have managed to build the trust or relationship and asking people to join, mostly startup and the smaller environments, to join and see and basically tag along throughout the design process. But in larger organization, again, most of the deliverables, most of the design approvals happens on Google Docs. And when it comes to that, it's a bit hard, at least from my perspective.
That totally makes sense. Like, what is the hardest part? Yeah, it is. If someone's got the headset on, you need to record what they're doing, like they're seeing. And then it's also, you got to see what actions they're doing. So you need it almost a third person view of them. And then, yeah, obviously sharing all those different things. So yeah, there's just more to contend with for sure. What gets you excited the most about VR as we go into the future now, like, and XR and so on? What is the most exciting thing?
For me, being a tech lover and a nerd, what most excites me is the advancement in technology and having more players, more competition into the industry. Yesterday, we had the announcement from Google, Android enters the game with the Android XR SDK. Samsung's teases about the headset, the VR headset or MR headset, which seems very similar to Quest Pro in terms of industrial design. So we have to wait. Those kind of things excites me because that shouts opportunity, that shouts competition, that shouts new advancements and moving forward. You might feel that, oh, VR is not there yet. You might have heard or read articles, VR is dead. I don't believe VR is dead. I think VR, AR, and MR has been growing and is going to grow even faster than before. It might not have the same spotlight as AI these days, but it's not dead.
If you had to make a bet, let's say 5 years from now, and then maybe 10 years, like what would you expect to see? And I think anyone hearing this question is going to go, I'm not going to say it, but they're going to have maybe think they have quite a good perception of it, and it may align completely with what you're going to say. But I wonder if you can add a little maybe tweak on something that maybe most people wouldn't think of. Obviously keeping in mind as what product designers. Yeah, what do you think would happen?
I think in 10 years, the whole concept of interface design is going to change completely. I believe in 10 years, we will have personalized interfaces designed per user. So think about the current stage of AI. You can prompt and get something out of it. Imagine that you can prompt based on my preferences on how I'd like a website or a web application or mobile application look like or behave. You know that we have these patterns and studies of like how to use a CTA to make it more clickable, right?
Mhm.
That comes from a learning, but that's not 100% bulletproof, is it? That shows that most of case studies, we place this CTA here because it's been studied that it might lead to better sales, better clicks. We have user preferences that you can change that. And if ChatGPT or if any AI model learns my preferences and renders that interface for me in a way that I like it more, my interaction with that system, with that API, with that computer, with that device would increase massively. So I think in 10 years, the concept of interface design as we know it today will completely change. We would somehow, I very like this term, automagically designed. It's not going to be automatically placed. It's not going to be designed by some person, because at the moment, how we do design, we design an application and then we ship it to millions of users. I think that's going to massively change. It will have interfaces that are automatically designed per preferences, per user. And that would be applicable to all devices, web, mobile, AR, and VR. I don't think in 10 years, we will have the utopia of contact lenses that you wear and you have full AR experiences. But I think we will have very good smart wearables and AR wearables, including like glasses and stuff like that, that would help. I don't think we will say goodbye to VR headsets, because one of the things that I like about VR is they could change reality. Augmented reality, they cannot change. They would add, the entire technology is additive display. So you cannot change how your walls look completely or replace objects. So I think we will have VR headsets, we will have AR headsets, we will have gadgets. But the most thing that I think will change is how we deal with interfaces, with computer interfaces, and hence interaction between users and technology.
I've always interested in you saying that effectively it's a personalized interface that will change. So that you're saying in that sense that I open my app and my app looks, the whole layout is all different compared to someone else. Is that kind of happening already today? Do you, like, I mean, that is personalization is happening today, no? And so you're saying the experience from the user's point of view, it will be completely different, like layout, and like that kind of happens today for some products, no? Or
that kind of happens today for some products, but it's very limited. For instance, if you open Netflix here in the UK and open Netflix in the States, the top 10, the placement are completely different. If you open Netflix here and in Asia, the thumbnail design for same show are different because they know their audiences, but they're not designed per user, because there is no scope, there is no business logic of doing that. Because at the moment, we need a designer to do that different changes. We need a design team to provide different options and then a system to decide which option to be rendered. But what I have in mind is that in the future, your interface, and by interface, I don't mean just the UI, the context, the text, the tone, how they serve images, how they serve content, short or long videos, will be decided on the go based on your preferences.
okay, they were decided on the go based on your preferences. So, should we take Netflix? I open that up, and I'm seeing, maybe because of my my location, I'm seeing, as you said, so I'm not seeing the top 10 maybe because maybe it's been shown that this doesn't perform particularly well in this location.
You'll see top 10 if your behavior have been proven to Netflix that you pick from top 10. If I'm a person that I'll always pass the top 10 and go through the genre, Netflix will change that for me.
Yeah.
They won't force me to scroll down. That's the current behavior, right? You're forced to go through things that Netflix made a decision. They think this is most important for you. Most likely you'll click on this, but you still scroll those and pass.
Yeah.
So Netflix would learn, if you click on this, if you care about top 10, if you care about genre, if you care about a certain actor or theme or a music, Netflix would learn if you like to see a thumbnail or if you like to see trailers. Why do we have Netflix, Amazon, Apple TV, I don't know, Disney Plus? Why all of those have different designs? At the end of the day, they serve the same job, right? Showing content. They have the same different designs because they think different designs can attract different people, can serve different people. So those interfaces that are automatically drawn can be anything. If you prefer Amazon interface, you can have that on Apple. The same principles.
Does that mean you'd require more data about people? Or
Definitely.
you would need more, but do you think the data, because AI and so forth, that we can have that data more readily, or do you mean it'd be declared or provided by the user? Because in order to make those decisions, you need to know more about the person. No.
I think we'll reach a point to build enough secure and privacy tooling within the data collection flow that people would give up. Not give up. People would be happy to share more data. For instance, um, the way that Apple Intelligence has been announced, we still don't know. It's not fully out there yet. It's been announced that all of your data will stay on your device and it's not going to leave your device. That's very secure. And if we do the same thing on your smart TV, on your smart glasses, on your smartwatch, I personally don't have any issues sharing more data, because at the end of the day, I bought this device to have an easier life, to have a better experience. And if sharing more data with a device within the privacy and ethics that I care is happening, I'm happy to do so. So it's a matter of building that trust, building a true trust, not just advocating, if you're safe, not just saying that you're safe, proving that you're safe. I think people will be sharing data because it would make your life easier.
Makes sense. Yeah, no, that I think that's it, isn't it? It's just making sure, and obviously it comes down to just being secure and being transparent.
Yeah.
Of course, fantastic. Yeah, so I want you to kind of think about your actual work yourself and touch on what work are you most proud of that you've done. So you've worked on numerous things, different companies, different fields, or spaces within product design. So what are some of the things that you would love to shout about?
That's a very tough question. Based on my personality, I'm one of those designers that I hate the project that I shipped yesterday. I hate my portfolio, although I received very good feedbacks about it. But that's a tough part because I'm very
I saw your updated
yeah
Alibrio.
yeah.
That's great.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Because I always think that I could have done better, and I wish to do
That's
better.
not very useful feedback from me, by the way. Just it's great, but it looked good, top high level, looked fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When you asked that question, yes, I think about projects that I'm very proud of. I'm super proud of first version of Shape6R. I think when we worked on that, it was super hard and challenging. The reason why, it was almost 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5 years ago. There was no belief in the market that we need such a thing. The need was so low. So because of that, it was very courageous and brave to work on that. And I'm so proud of what we have done with a team of 9 for the first version of Shape6R. I don't mean that it was flawless. There was no issues. Yes, many issues. And I kudos the team for the length of effort. What we have now for the Shape6R is amazing. It's far away from what we shipped 4 years ago. But I'm super proud of what we have achieved. Apart from that, also the advancement and the progress that we had at Gravity Sketch Award with brilliant engineers on a couple of features. I do remember working on the mixed reality switch. So I don't know if you've tried it. Wearing VR headset and Gravity Sketch, you obviously entered in a virtual environment. The interaction that we came up with is that you reach out for your headset, for your virtual headset, you grab it and just pull it out, and you now change to mixed reality. And the interaction has been received by the community very well. It's interesting.
Okay, so yeah, so you're in VR, but then you almost pretend to reach for your headset when you take it off, and then now you're in mixed reality.
Exactly. So
And when
basically,
you're in mixed reality, you have to do that to take off the whole,
exactly,
and then there's no more reality.
exactly. So we basically learn that physical interaction and try to adapt and bring that into reality. That's actually one of my interest points of doing the same thing. That's one of the ideas that I'm working on. I'm attending an XR design challenge this time, not as a mentor, not as a judge, as a designer, because I thought that's more fun. It's happening now till mid of January, and that's one of the ideas that I'm working on, to bring physical interactions, which are familiar, which are known for us as human beings, to digital and to virtual reality and augmented reality. I won't be talking more about that because I want to work on that idea and show it. But thinking about what am I most proud of goes back to the time that I was a design manager at GameSys. It's not about AR and VR.
Where? Just for the
Yeah,
so-
GameSys.
okay.
I was head of design back then, and there was an opportunity there was a situation that after a merge that we were so close to say goodbye to one of the designers. But I thought that we could use the unique skills and build much better skill sets or support for the team from that individuals. Obviously, I'm not claiming the success for myself, but I think being willing to take the risk, and we worked closely together with that designer. I know that she knows that I'm talking about her, and I think it was an absolute change from an absolute threat to a win. She took on amazingly. She became an amazing designer. Her unique skill set from being a technical artist and attention to detail and being close to engineers helped massively to become our design system owner. And that helped massively. The team, the progress, the projects that we had. And even when I left, she was still doing the same job. And she's an amazing designer. I think that's the most proud moment of my career. Seeing an opportunity in one person, trying to support them, to coach them, and to lead them throughout their journey. Because these days, when I'm getting older and older and older, and I'm thinking about how could I increase my impact. And some days I feel about, as a person, as an individual contributor, I'm limited. But if I'm a manager, I have the opportunity of like providing some sort of feedback, even a small improvement in someone else's life as they're going to continue as a designer. It seems like I'm having a much bigger impact. And that's so satisfying for me.
So that's interesting. That's your most proudest moment. It's not actually your work, but per se, you're saying that you've enabled someone, which is fantastic. So what do you enjoy more? You've done the manager type thing. You've done the IC thing. So what do you prefer? And any advice to anyone who's kind of at a juxtaposition, they're an IC, and they go, maybe I should do the manager role.
That's a question that I'm dealing with at the moment. So yes, I've been an individual contributor. I've been design manager, head of design, and also a director of design before joining Meta. Now these days, I'm a senior designer at Meta, so I'm back to IC. Which one do I prefer? I don't know. I enjoy both of those, to be honest, and at the exact point of not making a decision. I cannot make a decision, to be honest with you. That's the most honest answer. I enjoy both. I haven't reached the point to say, oh, I don't enjoy the craft anymore. I don't enjoy being hands-on. That's never been the case. And I don't think that will ever be the case. Even the time that I've been head of design, I kept myself quite hands-on and be close because I think that's the best way of dealing and supporting creatives. I don't think you can be a design leader, a good design leader, and support creatives being completely hands-off and focused just on the strategy. You need to be involved to earn their trust. You need to get close, to be close and keep yourself close to technology, to design tools, to the craft, to be accepted as the design leader. That's at least my view, and helped me during the time that I was a design leader. So I'm not going to stay away from craft forever. But if I'm going to change my time allocation from being an individual contributor to being more supportive and enabler, that might happen in the future. Sure. but I don't know at the moment.
I found it interesting, that dichotomy of wanting to be a manager and IC. I've never been a manager, and I've always felt that I just like putting together designs and being very engrossed in that. And I've always felt that, yeah, I can be in a situation where I'm hands-on as well, but I felt like that might be a bit of a halfway house potentially. Have you not felt these sort of questions before or thought about this before?
I thought about it. There was a time in my career that I was getting a bit bored about the repetitive tasks of doing the same task every day as a designer and focus my craft. And switching to management helped me because I was zoomed out a bit more and enabling and supporting others to do the same job. And that led me to be creative, but in another aspect. I still have to solve problems, but different problems. I still had to deliver, but different type of deliverables. And by staying close to the craft and being hands-on, I don't mean like to be super focused on the pixel and icons and stuff like that. Even with the time that I was head of design or I was the director of design, I've tried to be the person who learned about the new tools, new technologies, and share those with the design team first and sooner than others. That helped to build that trust, to gain that trust that I'm still close. Because I don't think creativity and dealing with creative um, disciplines such as designers would happen if you get completely out and attached to business and completely detached from the design and the craftsmanship. I completely get you. I think um, we're living in the area in the time that we have these options. Both are available. We have companies that would appreciate designers, and you can still grow and get better paid. You can get more freedom, more impact as an individual contributor, and you can grow and be an individual contributor for the entire career. And that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I really, really appreciate companies that make that happen, make that opportunity. On the other hand, there's also career ladders that has been conventional and has been there for years, and it's going to be there to become a manager, to become a senior manager, to become a VP. And that's another way. And also, I know people who have jumped back from management to IC and then jump forward. At the end of the day, these are skills. No one's going to take those skills off um, your existence, right? If you can try it, give it a try. I would say give it a try. Yeah, give it a try. Even you can be a part-time freelance design manager for a project. You don't need to fully invest. You can do a voluntary design management for a charity. So there are opportunities. The good thing about this area that we're living is that we can try almost everything. It's terrifying at the same time that if we don't know where we're going, if we don't have a clear goal, we might get lost in the middle of trying everything. But on the other hand, we have so many opportunities. Sorry if I rambled.
No, that's good. There's more advice for me to than anyone who's listening to this. Um, yeah. So have you worked on something that didn't go your way, and what was that? Because it sounds like this is an interview now, is it? Does it like a typical job interview? But tell me a moment when something didn't go well and something wasn't all fantastic. But what was like the biggest maybe flop, I suppose, if it was that.
So many things. I think as designers, we need to make peace with it, that we're going to come up with ideas, with solutions that are not going to work, that are not going to be accepted or adapted by users. And that happened to me, and as any as designers, I'm sure that happened to you
Yeah.
almost every day, if not
Yeah.
almost every week, if not every day. There's been so many of those, especially in the XR industry. You come up with an idea that you think you're making it easier, you're making it clear. Then you put it in hands of users, and the reaction is like, "Why you've changed that? We were so happy with the previous one. We just learned that one." And change of patterns is so hard, especially when you're dealing with new medium, with new devices, and when you don't do that gradually. And that led to learning and adapting to procedural disclosure. I think that's a very, very good pattern, a very good approach in terms of if I want to change this mug, the way that it works, the way that it looks, rather than like dramatically changing and revealing it and say, this is V1 and having something different, completely different, and say this is V2 and adapt it and replace this one completely. Having a plan, having a strategy, and it's slightly getting there, or even when it comes to informations or the UI, the interfaces, the features and stuff like that, using the same pattern, the same technique of progressive disclosure and onboarding users with those. I think that was the main takeaway from those mistakes, from those dramatic change, from those reinventing the wheels.
Okay. Yeah, I can only imagine with, yeah, we got become so accustomed to so many interactions on mobile and so on, and you don't, if you release a new app as a new company, you don't need to come up with new interactions. You just leverage all the existing ones. But in this phase that you're focused in with VR and XR, everything's new and everything's, yeah, you always do want to play it safe. But if you do play it safe, then you're missing out on further opportunities. There, it's almost, yeah, just almost little incremental changes. And obviously just managing rollouts and experiments is kind of that, isn't it? It's doing lots of experimentation and yeah, using small sample sizes, I guess. I was going to say at this point, I wanted to ask, is there a question that, not necessarily from me, but just in general, something that we haven't spoke about that you go, oh, actually, I'd really like us to talk about that.
I think one of the hot topics or hot conversations these days, which we haven't talked about, is the AI and if it's going to replace us as designers and stuff like that. I hope that by the time that this episode is out, no one's like scared of AI. No one's feeling that AI is going to replace their job. But if one person is out there, I just wanted to say, wanted to quote this. I've heard it and I loved it and I kept using it. AI won't replace you, but someone who's using AI will. I want to invite every designer out there to get involved with AI, to use it, to break it, to learn it, to hate it, to love it, to build a relationship and see it as a tool. If we go back maybe 20, 25 years ago, graphic designers, the traditional graphic designers, would call out on the new generation of graphic designers who would use Photoshop and say, this is not graphic design. This is fake. There's no value of doing that. And it's going to either die or it's going to replace others' job. Photoshop has been out there for 35 years, if I'm not mistaken, and has become the basic standard of graphic design. Tools come and goes, patterns comes and goes. They don't stick and don't change. But yes, there are certain level of activities, repetitive tasks that if you're relying on those, if you're just doing those, yes, your job, your skills at risk. But use the opportunity and learn more about it and leverage it and use it as your sidekick, as your superpower, as your assistant, as your creative director. I've been inspired by one custom ChatGPT and created one for myself. So I've gathered a list of top 10 designers over the last 50 years from different disciplines. Then I've learned about the design disciplines and perspectives, fed all of those to ChatGPT and created a design mentorship group for myself. So I go to this custom ChatGPT. I have 10 amazing, iconic designers from different disciplines, architecture, product design. I have Dieter Rams, I have Johnny Ive, I have Mario Bellini. And then I ask a question and ChatGPT role plays as those designers and replies back to me. Sometimes they have conversations. Sometimes they have debates. And
On this one?
Custom ChatGPT. So you can train it in a way that you want. You can define roles, and then I have conversation with those. And this is amazing. That helps me. I've never had the opportunity, and I won't even have the opportunity to have a meeting with Dieter Rams or with Johnny Ive and like have them both at the table and discuss an idea and ask them for feedback and ask them to debate and come back with to improve my ideas. But I can have that right now, and that would massively help me. That would open the view. That would open up the opportunities. this is just one example. Again, I rambled a lot. I wanted to ask any designers out there, any creative out there, to not be afraid of AI and get closer to it, to leverage it as much as they can.
That's really interesting because what you've said is not really about any tooling, really. It's not about, obviously, Figma's, you know, it's been widely documented that you always agree to the new AI tool. You, auto opt in. Uh, that might not be right, actually. It's optional, is it not?
It's optional. It's not optional for the free accounts, but if you are purchasing the business seats, it's optional, and most likely your organization will opt out before even giving you access to the Figma.
Yeah. And so, but that's the irony, isn't it? That, as you said, big organizations are unchecking that. So that superpower, for in the interest of kind of security, I think is lost a little bit. Whereas maybe a startup might.
Yeah, I'm going to be sneaky and say, unfortunately or fortunately, the speed of iteration in the AI is much faster than the catch-up of the security teams at the organizations.
Yeah.
So there are new tools out there that you can try and learn about and use them before your cybersecurity team catch up on those. Also, you don't need necessarily to use them at your work machine. You don't need to deal with sensitive data and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name a specific company, but I was using a feature from Logitech, the company who builds peripherals, like mouse and keyboard. They've introduced a new middle click that you would open up ChatGPT, and it took companies almost 2 months to realize, oh, that's a breach. But people could have installed that and used that on work machines and stuff like that. But most companies these days either have their own AI model or have a secure access to AI models. And also, most of us have access to the smart devices such as our phone. That could be your domain and that could be your personal phone. The good thing about AI is that most of the computing power is happening on the cloud. So you don't necessarily need a super powerful, expensive device to learn and to use and leverage AI. So just use it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it kind of really goes back to, actually, yes, AI won't replace you as a designer, but designers who are using AI will. And it's not, when we're not talking about this tool that's a design tool that will just make designs automatically. We're saying use tools, whatever, ChatGPT is one that you've mentioned. I don't want to mention too many, but that you're using it, even though it's not specifically a design tool. You're not saying it's literally making the designs. You're saying that you're using it for all these other things, questions and so on that you might have to guide you in mentorship. And AI agents is kind of what you were touching on there, wasn't it? Which is obviously going to be a big development going forward. What's the coolest thing or in VR or mixed reality that you've seen lately that's just like super cool and that you've would want to share? And share as well.
The thing that I can share, or I would say the most recent fun thing was actually a couple of days ago, I've attended the Snap AR day in London and played with the AR standalone AR glasses, Snapticals. Apart from the flaws and the form factor of the device being chunky, being heavy, the field of view being limited, one of the experiences that I really liked and enjoyed, although it was super stylized, although I knew it's not real, was a virtual pet. And it was a couple of seconds. The experience wasn't that long. And I found myself a couple of seconds later on my knees and petting that virtual pet. And that was super fascinating and exciting and fun for me. I know everything about this. It's not as immersive and as believable at all. It's not believable. I know everything is fake, yet I'm interacting with a virtual pet with big, shiny eyes on knees and trying to pet those. And that's the power of devices. So we don't necessarily need to get that super realistic graphics to make an engaging experience. That was super fun that I wanted to share. There are many, many applications, many experiences, many apps.
All things that you're working on, but you can't talk about, and hence why
Unfortunately,
it's an example from another company. Yeah. What's next for you in going forward?
what's next for me? That's a good question. Um, I don't know. I try to keep relevant to technology. I keep learning. I'm obsessed with learning, I must say. I made a pact with myself many years ago to not let a day pass without learning a new thing. Learning that new thing, it doesn't need to be huge scale. It could be just a little tiny
Learn
thing.
anything today?
Today, yes, I've learned about this area. I've learned about your setup. Um, and also, I was reading an article and an interview with Johnny Ive about their inspiration of Peter Arms designs. So still learning from that. Also reading articles about the recent announcement of Google XR, and that's also full of learnings. So, and I still have a few hours till the end of this day to learn. Where were I? I rambled a lot.
No, that was great. That I just said literally, of what have you, yeah, you said that you always want to learn something every day.
Yeah, I want the future. What's next for me? Um, I want to draw this. I want to make this as next for me to be involved in the XR and work on more meaningful, empowering projects. Yeah, the experience that I wasn't involved, unfortunately. So I'm not taking any fame, claiming any fame of it, but I'm so proud of being part of an organization who delivered on that. And I'd like to have a similar thing for my next step, is to be involved in a project which massively help people's in day-to-day life. The project that I wanted to talk about is the collaboration, the integration of Be My Eyes on Ray-Ban Meta glasses, and being able to help people with blindness, with difficulty in sights, to help them into their day-to-day activities. That's massive. That's so heartwarming. That's so amazing to be part of. So I want the next thing for me to be something that is useful, that is powerful, empowering, enabling for people in day-to-day. And I'm aiming for that.
Well, thank you, Mo, so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
All the insight that you provided. And like I said, it was completely self-indulgent for me to just learn all these nuggets of information, things I've been thinking about.
Thank you.